All right, all praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High Elohim, the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I want to say peace to you in the name of his son, Yahushua Mashiach, who we know is Jesus the Christ. It's always a blessing each and every single time that I can come before you to bring a message contained in his word. Never do I count it as a light thing to do so. The title of today's message is it a sin to marry somebody of another nation? And this is something that you often see amongst Israelites. It's a particular doctrine that you cannot marry somebody of another nation. And one of the main, and on the surface, it seems plausible, particularly what we're going to start off with in Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter. This is the instruction that was given to the children of Israel while they're in the wilderness, and they're going to go into the land of Canaan. So it says, when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Now here's going to talk about marriage. And it says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. Okay, so if you stop right there, it says, well, hey, you cannot marry somebody of another nation. We can close the book and go on with our lives. There's only one problem. We should finish that. We'll come back to that actually and read it. But if that's the case that you can't marry somebody else, then you have to explain this. This is Deuteronomy, the 21st chapter. It says in verse 10, when thou goest forth to war against thine enemies. So now your enemies are clearly those of other nations, right? So you've been victorious in war. It says, and the Lord thy God hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive. So you've made literal slaves and servants out of these people. It says, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and hast a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife. Now wait a minute. You're going to take possession of a woman that is of another nation. You understand what we're reading? So if it is absolute, you cannot marry somebody of another nation, this is a contradiction. So one thing we should understand, like my brother Micaiah says, hey, if I see something in the Bible, I don't understand. I know it's not the Bible. It's basically me. I just got to get understanding. And I think that's a great attitude to have when it comes to the Bible, because we're always learning. So now Nehemiah says, I'm going to start from the top. It says, when thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and the Lord thy God hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and hast a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife. Then thou shalt bring her to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails. And she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thine house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that thou shalt go in unto her, and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. So wait a minute. He just regulated you marrying somebody of another nation. You see, so it can't be that absolutely you cannot marry somebody of another nation at all. What's the problem about it? But certainly can be a problem marrying somebody of another nation. Let's go back to Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter, and see and read the problem and what he's actually addressing. Now he told them don't make covenant when they go in. So now, first of all, this is specific. These particular nations, when you go in, he said, don't make marriages with these 7 nations, right? And he says in verse 3, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. And he tells you why. Verse 4, for they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. See, it's because they're worshiping falsely. It was about false worship. That's why he said, don't marry these individuals. Okay. This is so when you look at Israel, when they came back from, you read it in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah, when they came back from Babylonian captivity, and during the times of Medo-Persians, because the Medo-Persians took over after the Babylonians. So they went back technically in the era of the Medo-Persian Empire, but it was they went in initially during the Babylonian Empire. So now they go back into the land, and then what do they start doing? They start intermingling with people, but they're intermingling with people, and the people don't serve the Most High. They serve false gods, and that is the problem, right? It can't be absolutely, you can't marry somebody else, because we just read in Deuteronomy 21 of the regulation in Torah about a war bride from another nation. So now this is the issue. It is whether or not the person is dealing with the Most High. And we see this here. Let's pick it up in Ruth. This is Ruth. And see, so now one thing, and so a lot of Israelites, they say, well, how do you deal with Ruth? And they would try to say Ruth was an Israelite. Ruth was not an Israelite. Okay, she was not an Israelite. Let's pick it up. Let's pick it up in Ruth 1 and verse 1. It says, now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons Melhan and Chilion, Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah, and they came into the country of Moab and continued there. Then it says, and Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she left her and her 2 sons. And they took them wives. Notice what it says, of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth, and they dwelled there about 10 years. So what happened next? It says, and Melhan and Chilion died also, both of them, and the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. So now, though the husband died of Naomi, and then her 2 sons died. So now it's just Naomi, is Orpah, and it's Ruth. Notice what it says, and now, so now Ruth and Orpah are of another nation. They are Moabites. So now they are of the nation of Moab. So now it says, because she tells them they need to go home to their own people. She said, this is verse 8. Notice what Naomi, the mother-in-law, says. And Naomi said unto her 2 daughters-in-law, go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that ye may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband. Then she kissed him, and they lifted up their voice and wept. And they said unto her, surely we will return with thee unto thy people. So there seemed to be a legitimate affinity between and love between these women, okay, as daughters-in-law to a mother-in-law that they cared for. And she's telling them, you need to go back. I have nothing for you. And Naomi said, turn again, my daughters. Why will you go with me? And are there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. If I should say I have hope, if I should have an husband also tonight, and should also bear sons, would ye tarry for them till they were grown? In other words, would you wait? You know, like you look at that case with Judah in Genesis, you gonna wait this whole time till he grows up and becomes a man, then you're gonna marry? So she's saying, listen, you need to go find a husband of your own people. Okay. She said, would ye tarry for them till they were grown? Would ye stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. Right. So her husband died, the 2 sons have died. Right. Basically, provision and protection gone. And they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. So Orpah's like, all right, you right, I'm out, deuces. But Ruth, she clave unto her. Notice what Ruth says. And she said, behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her gods. Now, I'm going to read that part again. And she said, behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back unto her people and unto her what? Her gods. You see that? So she's going back to her own people, and her own people have their own deities. And that is the problem, because all those gods are false. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. So she's telling Ruth to do the same thing. But Ruth says, now notice what Ruth says. Pay attention, verse 16. And Ruth said, by the way, Ruth is a Moabite. And Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee. In other words, don't force me to leave, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God, my God. See, so what is she saying? She's saying, I want to be a part of this commonwealth, because Israel is a commonwealth. Remember, they left in a mixed multitude. That's one of the big problems we don't understand. When I say I'm talking about a lot of Israelites don't understand, is that you can be of another nation and serve the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You can do that. You're making that decision to serve him. That's actually, you see that throughout the text. And you certainly see this in the New Testament with the spreading of the gospel. So in order to, you have to be careful with that. Because one thing, just a side note, many Israelites don't even know, or a large number don't even know who Israel is. They dealing with some bogus chart saying who Israel is. That's the first problem. Secondly, you have to make the text say something that is not, in order to substantiate this doctrine, which is always getting you in trouble. You're adding, right? So you don't want to add, you don't want to take away. So like when you say that Ruth is an Israelite, you're changing the word. It clearly says she's a Moab. When you go into the New Testament and say all those people that the apostles went to, they Israelites. Those are the 10 tribes. You have changing the book. You say go into all the world. Well, you see, world doesn't mean world technically, or he's got to go. He's not going to people of other nations. He's going to the Israelites scattered in those other nations. Well, when I've shown this before, he's dealing with Gentiles. And then I know we'll say, well, Israelites are sometimes called Gentiles. Yes, but he's dealing with Gentiles of other nations. Okay. That were the goyim and scattered abroad. And what would cause you not to accept the reality of what the book is saying, quite frankly, is hatred of other people. Has other people done us dirty? 100%. The Bible tells you that. Now, the Bible also tells you they're going to pay, but it also is not rejecting somebody on an individual level that's going to serve the Most High. And that's what we should understand. So now she said, I'm going to read what she said again. She said, she said, thy people shall be my people, and thy God, my God. Let's go to Ruth chapter 4, because basically the Levirate law was followed, and Boaz took Ruth, he covered her, and they had a son. Verse 13, 4 and 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife, and when he went in unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the women said unto Naomi, who was a Moabite, blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. Okay. So now let's pick it up a little earlier, because it says more in verse 10, moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Melhan, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name, this is Boaz, raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. So he took possession of her, and he to fulfill the duty of brothers. He was a kinsman, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place ye are witness this day. And all the people that were in the gate and the elders said, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is come into thine house like Rachel and like Leah. But who came in the house? A Moabitess, which two did build the house of Israel, and do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem. And let thy house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this young woman. And who comes out of this lineage? And verse 16, and Naomi took the child and laid it in her bosom, and became nurse unto it. And the woman, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, this is the son born to Naomi. And they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. King David. So now one more place. Let's go to Malachi. See, the problem is not you marrying somebody of another nation. The problem is that you marrying somebody of another nation that's going to turn you from following the Most High. And that's what Solomon did. That's what Israel did as a people. Israel did as a people. They did it in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah. If those people that they married, those women, would have been just straight up legitimate, fought like Ruth, there wouldn't have been no problem. Let's pick it up at Malachi. And again, you know it can't be absolutely you can't marry nobody else because he regulated you marrying somebody you captured in war. A woman that you captured in war. Okay, that's specifically. But now let's pick it up at Malachi, the 2nd chapter, and 1 verse here. And this is it. Because he tells you what the problem was. He says, Judah have, in verse 11, Malachi 2 and 11, Judah have dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and Jerusalem. For Judah have profaned the holiness of the Lord, which he loved, and have married the daughter of a strange God. That's the problem. Let's go back to Deuteronomy, because I wanted to read this and I didn't read it. And let's go back to Deuteronomy 7. But you see what we just went over there. You thought we married the daughter of a strange God. When he said, what did he say? When he said in verse 11, it said Judah had dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and in Jerusalem. But Judah hath profaned the holiness of the Lord, which he loved, and hath married the daughter of a strange God. See, you're not sanctified, and you have to be sanctified. And that's what he tells you you are. So that's the issue. The issue was worship. Deuteronomy 7 and verse 6. After he told you, don't marry these people, for they'll turn your son from following me, that they may serve other gods. Then he reminds you, verse 6, for thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So we need to keep that in mind, and we make blanket statements without going further into the text. And with that, brothers and sisters, I want to remind you we at the House of Faith meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana, at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel. And we also have our Stafford, Virginia congregation that meets at the Red Roof Inn at 153 Garrisonville Road, Stafford, Virginia, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And with that, I want to say peace to everybody that's listening. And it's always my prayer that you will edify.